So, this is the first Olympic Games I'm watching mostly on streaming, but also, this is the first Olympics I'm watching athletes go viral on TikTok. Our experience of the Olympics is changing. Today, you'll hear how the Summer Olympics in Paris is a turning point for the Games. I'm Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This is Commotion. Look, when you're watching the Olympics, I want you to keep this in mind. At their core, they are a TV show, right? Like, you pay attention to the same things that make a TV show great. We're talking about characters, we're talking about drama, intrigue, and a whole lot of emotion. And networks, by the way, including this one, have a lot riding on this show. Because up until now, sports has been one of those last places that you have for destination viewing. It's kind of like a truly sort of collective experience. But the way that we watch the Olympics is changing. You've got streaming platforms offering more live coverage than ever. And then you've got Olympians who are creating their own content on TikTok and people following them very closely. The group chat is here, and it's all Olympics on Commotion today. We're going to talk about how we're watching the Games this summer and what it says about the future of sports. Mel Woods is here. Morgan Campbell is here. Welcome to the show, everybody. How y'all doing? What's up?
So happy to be here.
I'm so happy.
So excited.
I'm happy that you're here. I'm happy to get to talk to you about the Olympics with both of you.
It's always fun to talk to you, Elamin. Always.
Oh, get out of here. Okay, all right. Thank you for the nice things. Mel, I'm going to start with you. I think we think about the Olympics as this largely sort of collective experience, but there's so much happening all at once. How are you taking part this year?
You know, I'm not a jock in real life, but for 2 weeks, every 2 years, I'm all sports all the time. I'm very fortunate that because of the nature of my job, I spend a lot of time sitting at home in front of my computer and putting another screen behind that computer that just kind of has stuff going constantly all day, every day. So I've got my CBC Gem going. Here on the West Coast, it's about 7 a.m. till 1 p.m. every day. I'm watching the TikToks. I'm following along on Twitter. It is a full immersive experience, and I'm loving all of it.
What's your favorite moment so far?
Oh my God. Probably, yes, the women's rugby sevens tournament was so full of joy. You got to see these just powerful people doing crazy things, and watching the Canada national team go all the way to the gold medal match when kind of nobody expected it. They had huge just happy to be here vibes. Knocking off France, the home country, knocking off Australia. It was so exciting. But I also really enjoyed watching Eleanor Harvey win in fencing, because that's a sport I know nothing about. I have never watched fencing before, and getting to watch and learn what all the lights mean and where they're allowed to poke and where they're not allowed to poke. And then I went down a Google rabbit hole about why they wear the fancy little outfits. And it was just such a great learning experience and kind of that collective moment together with everyone.
Yeah, my favorite part of the Olympics is that I learn new terms in each sport every time. And I go, I should probably hold on to that knowledge, and then I completely forget it. And I learn it anew, a few years later. Morgan, what about you? How are you taking part? How are you consuming the Olympics this year?
Hey, Mel, I have you one-upped, Mel. So right now I'm in Chicago. I'm in a hotel, so I'm cut off from a lot of my apps because they want me, I can see what's on NBC, which is not a lot. I can see what's on USA Network, but they also want me to, run up to the TV and scan a QR code and download these apps. But I don't live here, so Peacock app, it's not going to work on my phone. But anyway, I have you one up to Mel, because what I like to do, especially if I'm on the exercise bike in my living room, I'll put the tablet on the exercise bike. I'll put the coffee table behind the exercise bike, open up the laptop, and then beyond both of them is the television. And so I can look at, if I keep all three screens in a line, I can watch all three screens at once, each one tuned to something different.
You guys have captured...
That's a totally immersive experience too. You're riding a bike while watching biking in the Olympics.
Right, exactly.
I do love this though, because what we're talking about here is that people kind of go out of their way when the Olympics roll around to go, I'm going to dedicate a large portion of my life to this. Morgan, what's your favorite moment so far at the Olympics?
Ooh, favorite moment so far. Is something that's ongoing is the fact that the Canadian men's basketball team is 2-0.
Yes.
Because for years, and I wrote a feature about this for CBC Sports, for years, especially in the last 5 or 6, 7 years, when Canada has been sending all these players to the NBA, and NBA Canada wants everyone in the media to understand that Canada is the second best basketball country in the world as measured by its number of NBA players. But internationally, those results haven't always translated until last summer when they got that bronze at the World Cup. And so this summer, it's not just that Canadians are happy to be there, which is a very Canadian attitude to have for a lot of things. It's that this crew of players is a legit medal contender. The fact that they were, they're in a group with Greece, Australia, and Spain, and everyone said Canada's in the group of death, but it's starting to look more like Greece, Spain, and Australia are in the group of death because they have to play Canada.
That must feel good. I think that's a really lovely way to put it.
It's such a relief.
It is. It really is. Mel, can I just ask you this? The model has shifted so much in the past generation because we used to sort of watch the event live on TV or like watch the highlights during prime time. But now, but back then you used to have like these really brief little interviews with the biggest athletes. But now you can just follow athletes who are creating their own content. So let's take a listen to Ilona Maher. She's a U.S. women's rugby player, certified TikTok star with almost 2 million followers.
I cannot wait to get into the Olympic Villa. It's gonna be a crazy summer. Honestly, I'll probably be the fittest bird in there.
Wait. It's called the Olympic Village. This isn't Love Island.
Yeah, I guess if we want to say that, but I still am going to try to couple up early on. It is early days, but at the end of the day, I am there to find love.
No, you're not. No, not love. You're there to play rugby.
Oh my God, Mel. Okay, what makes an athlete stand out from the crowd of content creators, you think?
I mean, she's definitely a standout, and I think a big part is the volume of posting that she's been doing, but also the humanity behind it. You know, she's been doing very funny ones like that one that we just heard, but she also has spoken about body image, and she's spoken about getting harassed by mega trolls and all these sorts of things, and is really giving that kind of portrait in. And I think that I, as a viewer, what I'm looking for from TikToks during the Olympics is that portrait in behind the scenes. You know, what we see on the screen, what we see on our streaming service is one story, and what's happening for the athletes just as people in these 2 weeks is a whole nother story. And it's like, I love watching a little inside the venue tour from Tom Daley walking around the swimming pool and the diving boards and showing me everything, or the village and people being like, this is what I ate today at the Olympic Village. It's like, give me all of that content. I will watch it over and over and over again, because I think that's what does really well on TikTok, is that really kind of first person peek behind the curtain of something that you don't know, you don't understand. Earlier I was talking about, learning the rules of fencing, but also learning how, you need to eat to be a handball player. Like that's something interesting. And I think TikTok's a really great place for doing that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who are doing it well who are also stars. I think there's a really memorable moment from the women's gymnastics final. The team final was after winning a gold medal. Simone Biles and the U.S. Olympic national team. Immediately, the camera panned to her and Suni Lee planning what they were going to do on TikTok with their medals. And I think that's just such a great moment that's like in this like peak of career. Immediately, they're like, okay, what dance are we going to do? And I think that just shows how kind of ingrained the experience is to these games.
Well, so this is kind of like the fun of it, right? Like the fun of it has gone from, to the TV networks who used to cover these things would never think to go, let's do a large item on what you need to eat in a day to be an Olympian preparing for your competition in 4 days. But now you get this sort of inside look into what it's like to live in that world. For example, it kind of reminds me of that like cruise doc story, if you remember it, like the idea of like, this is like a day in the life of people who are on this cruise every day. Who's doing it best when you sort of like look at all the Olympian TikTokers?
Oh my goodness, there's so many. There's the Muffin Man, who I know we're going to talk about later, who's this Norwegian swimmer who loves chocolate muffins. I think Ilona Maher has been doing well. I think a lot of the Canadian rugby girls have also been doing very well. They had a very fun video testing out the cardboard beds that have become quite viral. That they have these beds in the Olympic Village are not fully structurally sound potentially, but they have tested them, they have jumped on them, they have done all of the things. I also really loved Dutch surfer Safi Vet has been posting from Tahiti, because the surfing competition obviously can't happen in France, and so their athletes village in Tahiti is on a cruise ship, so talk about cruise talk, and posting about the Germans who are staying above her, dropping a speaker down and singing along. And I think that just makes you remember that these people that we're watching do these spectacular things on TV are also like mostly people in their 20s, just like having a party, having a fun time. And it's really nice to get those reminders.
Can I just say, we're also seeing like a different side of some of the biggest athletes around, like Coco Gauff, for example, and what the Olympics really look like. She recently shared this on TikTok. Okay, I promise no one was harmed in the making of that video. That is U.S. tennis star Coco Gauff. She's showing us what it's like for 10 athletes to be sharing 2 bathrooms at their apartments at the Olympic Village. Something she recorded before she was eliminated. She was eliminated yesterday. Morgan, can I just ask you, what is riding on this for athletes? What do they get out of it? You know, in terms of like, not just how well they perform at their event, but also, you know, how big of a deal they make on social media.
A few things. One, traditionally, the Olympics have sort of been, the Olympics were the original exposure economy because they don't pay appearance fees. For the most part, there is no prize money except like if your government says we're giving $1 million for each gold medalist, that's one thing. But for the most part, like none of this is guaranteed. And the big payoff for most, especially for most North American or European athletes, was the fact that you could use whatever fame you gained in the Olympics, leverage that into sponsorship deals that will make your life easier for the next 4 years. And again, that's starting to change a little bit. World Athletics is offering money to gold medal winners. Everybody's federation has, well, for countries that can afford it. Countries like Malaysia, where they know they're not going to have a lot of gold medalists, they'll give you 6 figures. Canada, you know, you'll get in the somewhere in the 5s,
right?
Around 20,000. I don't have the number off the top of my head. But the idea that the Olympics could take people who are sort of anonymous and make them into stars in a 2-week span like that traditionally has been the second level appeal of the Olympics, above and beyond what you could win and just above and beyond the competition. And so for a lot of Olympic athletes, like the goal is not the goal, but like the perfect timing is to hit the world scene the year before the Olympics. And you can collect all these sponsorship deals on the way into the Olympics, because the reality is every Olympic year, there's someone who becomes a star during the Olympics, and you talk to the sports marketing people and you say that person's going to be a star forever. And then 2 weeks after the Olympics, nobody cares who they are because they're not playing hockey, basketball, or football.
Right.
And so the thing to do if you're in track and field, cycling, whatever, if you can hit the world scene like Andre DeGrasse did in 2015 and then collect all these sponsorships heading into the Olympic year, then you're really winning.
I was going to say, like, I'm glad that Mel brought up Henrik Christensen, who's like this Norwegian swimmer, because I think he's like a really good example of this. So Henrik has been doing all these TikToks because he's a really big fan, it appears, of the muffins that are available, the chocolate muffins specifically, that are available in the athletes' village in Paris. And so I think like what I'm really interested in is he becomes this giant star because people are so obsessed with following his virality on TikTok. Is that how you create new stars now? Is that a trade-off for, you know, the moment that we used to have on the cereal boxes? Because the cereal boxes are recognizable for people. You put the athlete on the cereal box. But now you just create a big enough viral moment for yourself. Is that worth the same thing, Morgan?
2 things. One, it's maybe not worth the same thing long term, but it's worth something to people who traffic in that world. And if you can, like, you looked at when Jake Paul had his fight 2 weeks ago, and the Haktua girl was in the audience, and they cut to her and they're like, Haktua girl, like, okay, fine, like that's cute, but that is very much like Bart Simpson saying I didn't do it. Like, that's gonna flame out very quickly.
It's not gonna last very long. Yes.
What people forget,
short-term viral fame. Yeah.
Yes, but the 2 things people forget is, for every sport in the Olympics, there are all kinds of people. Like, we might not have heard of these folks before, but they are famous to somebody, because every single sport has a dedicated fan base that follows folks between Olympic cycles. It's just the rest of us to kind of parachute in. And so everybody might not have heard of Anthony Jean-Jean, like the French BMX guy that just got a bronze medal. I didn't know who he was until literally this morning.
Yeah.
But you know who has fans in France? You know who has fans among BMX fans? Anthony Jean-Jean.
Yeah.
So it's a case of the rest of us sort of cluing in. And now, because you can stream all these events and sort of give these more obscure events a bigger platform, that niche fame now has a better chance of kind of crossing over into something more mainstream.
Yeah, I'm glad that you said the word stream these events, because like that is the subject matter of our next conversation. My name is Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This show is called Commotion, and today's episode is all Olympics edition. Mel Woods is here, Morgan Campbell is here, and we're talking about the way that we watch the Olympics and how that has changed. Mel, one way that it's changed is we've literally go to different places now to watch the Olympics than we did even just 4 years ago. So we've seen TV viewership decline over the years. How much is riding on the Olympics now as networks, including this one, by the way, including the CBC, the one that we're talking on right now, push viewers to watch the Olympics on their streaming platforms?
Yeah, it's so interesting. I remember when I was a kid watching, on the channel on TV, and just be put on the CBC, and then whatever the CBC fed to us was what Olympics we watched in our household. And then I think about, my adult life and how I've found the Olympics in various ways. And even 4 years ago, I remember I was like, I'm a cord cutter. I don't have cable, but I have a Roku, and there's like a little CBC thing where you can watch the live streams of different CBC channels across Canada. So that's how I watched the Olympics, in past years. And now when I go onto the GEM app, I can be like, oh my gosh, if I'm getting so bored of, I don't know, artistic gymnastics and I want to go watch surfing, I can just flop on over and watch surfing. And now I can flop on over and watch soccer. And I can have two screens going with different, like yesterday, the women's gymnastics final and the rugby final were happening at the same time. And so being able to watch those at the same time on different devices and everything is a really benefit of streaming, because I think that one thing, and the Olympics are unique in that. Other big sports events, there's one big game happening. Nothing is happening at the same time as the Super Bowl. Nothing is like really at the same level as happening at the same time as the MLB finals. But for these networks, it's figuring out how to get that collective human, everybody watching the thing at the same time and get it onto what is the future, what is the thing they've been investing all their other content on, which is streaming platforms. That is not necessarily about everybody watching the same thing at the same time. It's about everybody being able to watch whatever they want, whenever they want. And I think that's a big question that we see. And we see this happening in the US, I think, with NFL football. I'm a big football fan, and watching the networks and pick up different games to be exclusive on their streaming services. You have a game that's exclusive to Peacock, and you have a game that's exclusive to Prime on Black Friday and things like that. And I think that shows the future, but at a certain point, viewers are going to get frustrated having to be on all these different places to watch what they want, as opposed to the Olympics, where it's like, okay, everything's on CBC if you're Canadian, everything's on Peacock or NBC if you're American. So I think that it's a really interesting time to be working through all of that.
I'm interested in everything that you just said there, particularly the idea of this sort of large shift that we're all sort of making, because you're right. Like when you open the CBC GEM app, it sort of gives you a smattering of sports that are happening at the same time. And it used to be the case that you would turn on the television and the broadcaster would go, you need to be watching this. This is the big deal that is happening right now. Morgan, NBC has the rights to the Olympics in the United States, and they're using it much in the same way that CBC is using the Olympics as an opportunity to showcase GEM. NBC has a streaming service, which is Peacock, and so all their energy is trying to go to get you to watch Peacock. So if you're in Canada, I work for a broadcaster that was trying to tell you to go, hey, get GEM. That's where you can watch the best Olympic stuff. And if you're in the US, NBC is trying to tell you this is the moment. You got to go get Peacock. How is Peacock's approach different, you think, than other streaming networks?
Peacock is really mysterious. One thing we have to keep in mind is that overall, big picture, and I have experience with a lot of this because I watch a lot of nerd sports. I watch a lot of boxing, track and field. This is just not on TV, so I have to stream stuff. But streaming services are not making money right now. They're spending a lot more money in rights fees, and if they're smart spending on technology, they're still not making money yet in terms of what they're getting from subscribers. And the deal they're offering keeps changing, because the original appeal of streaming is that you can watch what you wanted, but also that if I paid the subscription fee, I wouldn't have to deal with ads. But now here they come with tiered membership plans. And now I'm paying extra on top of this, and I'm still getting ads. The appeal of television is that I don't have to pay because the sponsor is going to pay. Now I'm paying and the sponsor's paying, and you're still not making money. So something's going to have to give. And so now these, NBC in particular, is because that's what we're talking about. They're trying to, they sort of see habit change coming, and they are trying to tell us to change our habits more rapidly than we are inclined to change our habits. And the way to do that is, hey, this Chiefs-Bills game or whatever it was back in January, you can't get it on NBC. You got to get, you must get Peacock to watch this thing. But the other thing that's happening, since we're talking about the Olympics, NBC/Peacock, they had the rights to Diamond League track for years and years and years and years. Contract ran out this year. Guess who did not renew? NBC did not renew with the Diamond League, even though track is the big Olympic sport. Because part of the problem is in order to the one thing that really moves American viewers is NFL football. But to stay in business with the NFL, you have to spend a bigger and bigger fortune every time those rights come up. And so a lot of these Olympic sports that used to be able to find a home on NBC are going to find themselves homeless because NBC is dedicating all their resources to the NFL.
Yeah.
And so a lot of these Olympic sports are just going to wind up sort of like horse racing in that we don't pay attention to horse racing 12 months a year, but Kentucky Derby Saturday and 2 other Saturdays after that, we want a big show. But after that third race in the Triple Crown, we're not paying attention anymore. And this is what I sort of see happening with Peacock and Olympic sports, because you have to pour so many more resources into securing NFL rights and now NBA rights. They just spent another fortune on the NBA, and this is sort of where it's heading. So I'm interested to see what happens in the lead up to 2028 in Los Angeles, games in the US, but the main broadcaster is sort of disinvesting in Olympic sports ahead of that Olympic cycle. So I don't know what's going to happen, really.
Well, so this is why I wanted to have this conversation. And I think there might be some folks listening, Mel, who think this is a bit too inside baseball when it comes to how the industry works. But it's not. It really affects your experience, not just of the Olympics, but of all the sports that you end up watching. You mentioned, for example, the NBA and NFL deals with streamers. So NBA just signed an 11-year media rights deal with Amazon Prime Video, along with a couple of games for Disney and NBC. Whether it's the Olympics or pro sports, what do you think is the future of watching sports? Because clearly streamers are trying to say the habits have already changed. People are already watching on streaming. Why don't we also give them the last thing that they go to linear television for? But that transition, as far as I can tell, appears to be a little bit clunky.
Yeah, it's so interesting.
Sorry, go ahead, Mel.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Mel, then Morgan. Let's have both of you guys. Go.
No, it's just I find it so interesting because as a fan, I come into this conversation largely as a fan, and the most appealing thing about sports is the collective experience. Obviously we love to see the feats of athleticism, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
But it's being there in that moment. It's being able to say how it felt like watching, the women's national teams, the soccer team on Saturday when they beat France and when they scored that goal in the 11th minute
what
of
an
stoppage
emotional
time.
moment. Yeah.
And being on Twitter and on social media and getting to see that at the same time as everybody else, catching that later, catching that at a different time. No, I want to be there as it's happening. And so I think that is always going to be appealing, and that's always going to carry money with it, especially for those bigger games of things like the Super Bowl, things like NFL football. But, any kind of big marquee event. And we see that with, I think, you mentioned boxing earlier. I think that these big pay-per-view fights are a testament to that. And I do wonder if there will be single game sort of subscription streaming packages or things that come, because there is such an appeal. There is such a money to those kind of collective experiences as they're happening. And I would pay, if I get to watch the Super Bowl in my home, I host my Super Bowl party, I would pay an amount of money to be able to do that because that collective experience is so important.
Morgan, last word to you on this.
I think, Mel, unfortunately, you said you would pay for the Super Bowl. You go, man, Mel, do not say that in public. Because the thing that boxing fans complain about, and the things that normal people, non-boxing fans, think is weird about boxing, is that the boxing equivalent of the Super Bowl, whatever that is from year to year, you don't get that on normal TV. You don't get that on default streaming. You have to pay extra. And so 5 years from now, for all pay-per-view, we're watching the Super Bowl on pay-per-view on a stream, it's all going to be Mel's fault, because the truth is, any of these broadcasters would love to be able to charge you by the game, right? And then upsell you for a whole season at a much higher rate than they did before. And I think a lot of this for the niche sports, for the Olympic sports, the broadcasters and the stakeholders and the people selling the rights aren't necessarily thinking about growing these sports. In the NFL, there's literally no room for growth unless they go to Brazil or Germany.
Yeah.
But they're thinking about getting more money from the people who are willing to pay.
Look what you did, Mel. Look what you did.
It's all my fault.
We are just about to put it to the test. When that happens, fans, go talk to Mel.
Go talk to Mel. It's all Mel's fault. I got to leave it there, but I really appreciate this chat. Mel Woods, Morgan Campbell, you guys are the best. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And go Team Canada.
Of course, absolutely. Every day. Morgan Campbell is the host of Bring It In on CBC Gem. Mel Woods is senior editor at Extra Magazine in Vancouver. You can catch the Olympic Games and every highlight on CBC Gem. That is it for the podcast today. My name is Elamin Abdelmahmoud. This show is called Commotion. And you know what? We'll see you tomorrow.